I still remember the morning I walked out into my soy field and saw the gleam of metal half buried in the dirt, Karen's pearl, white SUV pitched nose, down in the pit I'd dug. Back wheels sticking up like a helpless animal caught in a trap. She was inside, screaming, red-faced, pounding at the glass, but her phone had no signal. Her doors were wedged, and her precious HOA power meant nothing in that moment. For weeks she'd torn up my land, mocked my boundaries, and pushed me to the edge of madness. And now, at last, she was the one cornered, and the land itself seemed to laugh with me. I should start at this beginning, back before her HOA tried to swallow up my life. My name's Daniel McGraw. Most folks around here just call me Mac. I'm 57, born and raised on this farm in Montana, 5,000 acres of stubborn soil that my father passed down to me. My world was simple: corn on the East Ridge, soy out back, dogs on the porch, tractors older than most of the kids who move into these new developments. I live by fences and boundaries, not because I like keeping people out, but because I know chaos comes in the minute you forget where the line is. For years, things were steady, until Silver Creek Estates sprouted up like a rash on the edge of my property. Neat rows of beige houses, postage, stamp lawns, and worst of all, their almighty HOA. Enter Karen Whitfield, self-appointed Queen of Silver Creek, president of their HOA and professional busybody. First time she showed up, she pulled her shiny SUV into my gravel drive like she owned the place, stepped out with her clipboard, sunglasses big enough to hide half her face, and that stiff posture you only get from yelling at waiters. She smiled like a substitute teacher greeting a kindergartner and said, "Mr. McGraw, we'd like to formally invite you to join our HOA." I just stared at her and said, "Ma'am, I don't live in Silver Creek." She laughed, actually laughed, and told me since my land bordered theirs on 3 sides, it would be in everyone's best interest for me to conform to their community standards. I sipped my coffee and told her flatly she was standing on my gravel, and I wasn't interested. She left with a fake smile that looked more like a threat than anything. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. Couple weeks later, I found tire ruts cutting through my soy. Deep ones. Like someone thought my field was a mud racing track. Plants snapped, soil torn up. First time. I figured maybe kids being stupid. Second time. I knew better. SUV, sized tracks. Same curve every time. My cameras didn't reach that far. My dogs couldn't guard 5,000 acres. And the sheriff said without plates or footage, there wasn't much he could do. But I started noticing that same pearl, white SUV parked on the service road at odd hours, just sitting there, watching. Then she brought a contractor to the edge of my fence, pointing at my land, whispering like they were designing their own little Eden. When I walked over, she announced she was exploring shared soil access for a community garden. Shared soil on my land. I told her to take her roses and shove them back into her HOA yards. She pursed her lips so tight I thought she'd swallow her own teeth, and from then on, the real destruction began. Week after week, new tracks, new damage, every path carved like a message straight into my livelihood. I reported, I documented, I begged the sheriff's office for help, but it was the same story. No proof, no action. That's when the doubt hit me. One night I sat on the porch, dogs at my feet, staring at the dark fields. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe this was just weather or pranksters. Part of me wanted to let it go, just patch the ground and move on. But then I thought about all the hours I'd spent sowing those rows, the sweat dripping into this soil. My father's voice reminding me that land only stays yours if you fight for it. My stomach twisted. I felt powerless, small, ready to quit. But then anger lit back up in me like a match. If the law couldn't protect me, I'd have to protect myself. So I went back to what I know, digging. I mapped out the path her SUV always took, measured the curves, and set to work with shovel, planks, tarps, and patience. I disguised the pits like drainage trenches, covered them with dirt and straw until they blended perfectly. I wasn't planning to hurt her, just stop her, make her feel the same helplessness she'd forced on me. I even rigged up an old signal jammer my son had left behind, so if she got stuck, she wouldn't be able to call her army of HOA board members to the rescue. Sure enough, the very next morning, I found her vehicle tipped into the first pit, headlights buried, back end pointing at the sky. The sight of her flailing in there, hair tangled, face smeared with dirt, sent a laugh booming out of me that I couldn't hold back. I leaned on my truck and called out, "Cell service a little spotty today? Need the HOA landscaping committee to dig you out?" She screamed at me to let her out, called me every name in the book, but I just radioed the sheriff and a tow. I wasn't about to touch that mess. Better to let the law see it for themselves. When Sheriff Harris showed up, he just stood there beside me, sipping coffee, staring at the sorry scene. "Mac, you dig that hole?" he asked. I shrugged. "Drainage trench," I said. He smirked, but didn't argue. By the time they winched her out, bumper dangling, radiator hissing, she wouldn't even look me in the eye. She was arrested right there for trespassing and property destruction. I thought that was the finale. But if you've ever met someone like Karen, you know they don't quit easy. 2 weeks later, I was served with papers. Karen was suing me. Intentional hazard, emotional trauma, reckless endangerment. The words made me laugh, but the pit in my stomach told a different story. If she won, I could lose everything, for a night or two. I sat at the kitchen table staring at those papers, feeling crushed. Had I gone too far? Was I really the lunatic she was painting me to be? For a moment, I almost believed it. Then my son introduced me to Linda Crowley, a civil lawyer tough as barbed wire. She looked over my reports, the sheriff's notes, trail, cam footage a neighbor had captured of Karen's SUV making midnight joyrides, even recordings from within her own HOA board where she'd bragged about making me pay through his crops until he caves. Linda leaned back, smirked, and said, "She's bluffing. We're going to bury her deeper than that SUV." Court day came, and the courthouse was packed. Folks from town, even some of Karen's own neighbors, filled the benches. Karen walked in with her fancy lawyer, dressed in black like she was attending her own funeral. They tried to paint me as some hostile extremist, setting deadly traps on innocent passers-by. But then Linda stood, calm as stone, and laid out every report, every timestamp, every piece of evidence showing Karen's pattern of harassment. When the judge heard that recording, Karen's voice clear as day saying, "We'll make him drive through his own crops until he breaks," the whole room went silent. The judge dismissed her lawsuit on the spot, ordered her to pay restitution for the damage she caused, cover my legal fees, and fined her for abusing her HOA authority. On top of that, the county banned her from ever holding another HOA position again. When she stormed out of that courtroom, face pale, lips trembling, I didn't feel triumph. Exactly. It was quieter than that. It was the kind of satisfaction you get when a long storm finally breaks and the sky goes still. A week later, I drove past her house in Silver Creek. The hedges she used to brag about were overgrown. Her once perfect lawn was yellowing, and a crooked for sale sign leaned in the yard like a surrender flag. No one waved, no one mourned her fall. She was just gone. Back on my farm, I filled in the pits, replanted the soy, moved the cameras out farther. The land healed, little by little. The silence out there wasn't mocking anymore. It was mine again. And every time I walk past that patch of dirt where her SUV once hung, I swear the ground itself seems to grin at me, like it remembers. So that's my story. I was pushed, doubted myself, nearly gave up, but in the end, I stood my ground, and Karen lost everything she thought made her untouchable. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You don't let anyone bulldoze your rights, because once you give them an inch, they'll take the whole damn field. That's the lesson of my land, and that's the story we tell here on HOA Drama Unfolded.